we have made enough concrete to cover the entire surface of the Earth in a layer of 2 millimeters thick. Enough plastic has been manufactured to cover our oceans. All this suggests humans have become a geological superpower that is now rivaling with nature. This is a new geological epoch the scientists are calling the Anthropocene, the age of humans. As this phenomenon continues to impact more of the planet, many scholars are now re-examining the meaning of the Anthropocene and argue that this era should be understood as a sociogenic phenomenon, emerging from particular social relations and an uneven distribution of power between different nations, social groups, and species. The Anthropocene begins to raise much bigger questions about how the very categories of human, non-human, nature, and culture are being reproduced, transformed, or even dissolved in the present moment. Through years of economic and industrial exploitation, humans are continuously tied up in a large web of instability with the evolving greed and capitalistic mindsets that grew out of colonialism and have led to subjugation of many cultures. This research aims to view the Anthropocene as a political and socio-economic symptom of global injustices in Punjab through the lens of a futuristic narrative. The culture of Punjab has been subjected to a long-standing global political and socio-economic inequalities. History shows Punjab has always taken on tyrants, and generations have been subjected to decades of state-sponsored violence and killings. For the people of Punjab, dissent against oppression is nothing new. We resisted the Mughals for 300 years and maintained a strong Sikh empire. During the British colonial rule, we were stripped of our prosperous empire and extracted of our resources to fund the colonial kingdom. The Sikh empire was the largest standing empire prior to the British rule, causing the colonials to cripple it from the inside, creating division amongst the community. The rulers took advantage of Punjab's natural and human resources to spread their control over the nation. When resented, Punjab was disparaged not only as a province but as a culture. Even after the British retrieved their rule over India, their proposed partition of Pakistan and India caught Punjab in the whirlwind of power and politics, as the state suffered more grievously than anywhere else. A composite culture was torn apart, a province split in two, many millions were displaced, and hundreds of thousands killed. We suffered in the 1984 Sikh genocide, where military assault and communal violence at the hands of the government massacred thousands in the anti-Sikh riots across several cities in India. Mobs, who were often instigated by government officials, killed Sikhs, looted and destroyed their properties, and attacked worship spaces without ever being held responsible. The recent passed controversial Farmers Bill in India, whose agenda will strip the farmers of their economic rights and voice in the agricultural domain of the country. In November 2020, Punjabi farmers and farm workers began to march towards the country's capital in order to protest against these bills, yet they were met with water cannons, tear gas, and beaten badly. There are 1.1 million farming households in Punjab that rely on agriculture as the main source of income, and since historic times, agriculture has been the locus of Punjabi culture and values. The bill constitutes an orchestrated attack under a nationalist agenda against the people of Punjab and aimed to further weaken and oppress the community. In the wake of this anthropocenic movement, it brings forth a bigger question of how these communities are going to revive themselves, and how will this culture that has suffered great trauma at the hands of religious and government officials be reimagined in the future. But let's first dissect the meaning behind futurism movements. Futurism was first launched by Italian poet Filippo Martini in 1909 when he published his founding manifesto of futurism. This launched a movement now known as Italian Futurism. Inspired by the makers of modernity, the industrial city, machines, speed, and flight, are all Italian futurism's advocates. Evolving over time, the futuristic ideologies are being experimented through a cultural lens. The most well-known of these movements is Afrofuturism. Afrofuturism is an art form, practice, that allows Black people to see themselves in the future despite a distressing past and present. All futuristic movements, from Italian futurism to Afrofuturism, are opportunities to challenge the present by picturing what comes next. They provide a pathway to liberation, an avenue to be able to transform ourselves and our communities. Keeping these objectives in mind, this research aims to answer how can a different narrative transform the culture of Punjab through the lens of these futuristic ideologies. How will the culture's modes of knowing, healing, sensing, and becoming be used to decolonize neoliberal discourses and their politics? How will technological advancements become the voice of the oppressed? An unprecedented degree of global economic, cultural, and political interconnectedness has developed the need to examine the forthcoming social and cultural dimensions of the Anthropocene, with futurism as a tool to provide an avenue to fantasize the evolution of Punjab while giving hope to a grieving community.